Hey, what's up? My name's Ursi and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to give you the Mary Russel Holmes tag. That's something you want to see, and stick around. So this tag is a little different because I wasn't tagged to do this on YouTube. I was tagged to do this on Instagram. So the person that created the tag and who tagged me was Kat, and her Instagram is Bridella Hardwick. And I'm going to link her Instagram in the description box of this video. But this is a very unique and interesting tag, and it took me a while to come up with the answers, I'm not gonna lie. The prompts for this tag were very specific in what it was asking for, and all of the prompts related to the character, the fictional character, Mary Russel Holmes. So there was a series, I believe, of mystery novels. It's like Mary Russel Holmes and Sherlock Holmes. I haven't read much Sherlock Holmes or Mary Russel Holmes books. That'd be something new for me to try out as well. But what Kat wound up doing was creating prompts that related to, I believe, the series that she was in. We're just going to find some books that relate to each of those prompts. But what I'm going to wind up doing is that some of the books have been stuff that I've read and some things that I want to read. Because again, some of these prompts were very different and I didn't have books that fit those prompts. But I'm up for the challenge of finding things that will. And we'll just get to it when we get to those questions. So with all of that out of the way, let's just start talking about the books. The first prompt is The Beekeeper's Apprentice, a book you read before you were 18 that has had a lasting effect on your life. And for this, I chose 3 books because I just chose 3 books. The first one is Animal Farm by George Orwell. And this book is about this farm, and the animals kind of revolt and take over the farm and create their own little political system there. And it's a political satire against communism and the Russian state, or I guess I should say the Soviet Union at that time, and Stalinist Russia. This is a very, very interesting book. I read this back in high school, and then I read it again in college, and I read it again for grad school. So it's just a really good book, and it's so short. You can read this in like a day. You can read this in one sitting. George Orwell was so masterful in what he was able to do in this small amount of space. So if you haven't read this, I suggest you do because it's really, really good. So that's George Orwell's Animal Farm. And now another Orwell book is 1984. This I need to reread. I haven't read this in a very long time. But I believe the ideas that we see here inspired my love for dystopian novels. Obviously, in 1984, if you don't know, it's about this big brother type state where the government kind of oppresses everyone. Everyone is like the sheep, right? This is such an old copy of this book. This is so old. I really like this book, and I feel like it had an impact on me in terms of my love for these kinds of books where we have a hard look on the government systems and how it impacts the people. Obviously, this is a more extreme case, but I feel like this idea of like the dystopian novels always have sort of a reflective look upon our own society, and I feel like it makes you a little more aware. You know what I mean? So yeah, George Orwell's 1984. And the third book, going along with this dystopian theme, we have The Giver by Lois Lowry. I read this back in like the 7th grade. And I remember back then, I didn't even read the whole thing. I just kind of followed along in class. I do remember the impact it had on me in terms of, again, these ideas of these big brother states. And this book is about Jonas, where he lives in a world where there's no fear, no, like everything's perfect. There's no fear, no pain. Everything's very organized. And he winds up receiving the job of the giver, which is a person that holds the history and sort of like the memories of all the people in that country or town. And I just remember having these really long discussions about dystopians, and it kind of fueled my love for these kind of books. over the years. So it's very interesting. I need to reread this. I did wind up finishing it like later on. Like I reread it, I finished it, but that was like a long time ago. I think that was like in high school. But I am gonna read this soon because it's been a minute and it's so short. I don't know. I keep putting all these long books in front of these little short books, and I need to give these a chance. I need to do like a month where I just read like all my short books. I think that might be a plan. All right, let's move on. The next prompt for this tag is A Monstrous Regiment of Women, a book about feminism. Bonus points if it talks about British suffragettes. The book that I chose for this prompt is Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot by Mikki Kendall. I thought this was very interesting, very well written. Mikki Kendall argues that some women exercise their privilege over other women, keeping other women down. Or the modern idea of the feminist movement doesn't include all women. The issues that Mikki Kendall points out that are largely ignored by the modern feminist movement are issues like food insecurity, access to quality education, safe neighborhoods, a living wage, and medical care. It's a very interesting book, and I do recommend everyone read it or listen to the audiobook. The audiobook was pretty good. I definitely related to a lot of the issues that she pointed out in this book. All right, moving on. Letter of Mary, a book where cars are central to the plot or a main character is a car enthusiast. Now this one I had a hard time. Mainly because I don't really read a lot about cars. It's just one of those things that doesn't interest me, right? But I did not shy away from the challenge. This is a book that I feel sounds really interesting. I definitely want to read it. And this is called Crash by J.G. Ballard. Now I'm going to read the description because I feel like I'm going to have a really hard time describing this to you. So I'm just going to read what it says on Goodreads. In Ballard's hallucinatory novel, the car provides the hellish tableau in which Vaughn, a TV scientist turned nightmare angel of the highways, experiments with erotic atrocities among auto crash victims, each more sinister than the last. James Ballard, his friend and fellow obsessive, tells the story of this twisted visionary as he careens rapidly towards his own demise in an intentionally orchestrated car crash with Elizabeth Taylor. A classic work of cutting-edge fiction, Crash explores the disturbing potentialities of contemporary society's increasing dependence on technology as intermediary in human relations. Now, this was published in the 70s, 1973 specifically. And I just think it sounds really interesting. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to add it to my TBR and see what it's like. Again, I'm not interested so much in cars, but I think this idea of this obsession over crash victims and stuff, I think would be a really good book. So yeah, that's Crash by J.G. Ballard. The next prompt of this tag is The Moor, a book with a healthy, established relationship, continuing in love, not falling in love. And again, this is another book I haven't read yet. It is The Bromance Book Club by Lysa K. Adams. And this is a book about these men. They form like a book club where they read romance books to help them sort of reestablish the love in their marriages. So they're already married and they're just kind of working on their relationships in order to not lose their marriage. So I guess this idea of continuing in love and fighting for that. So it is a romance book. I believe it's a romantic comedy. So obviously a little more lighthearted, but I feel like the issues that this book tackles is very interesting. And I feel like it'll be very relatable to me, obviously, as a married woman. Enjoying the thought of your husband still wanting to romance you well into your marriage. I think this would be a really cute book and a really fun one to read. And so I'm adding this one to my TBR as well. The fifth prompt, O Jerusalem, a book that retells theology or mythology. Now for this prompt, I already read Circe by Madeline Miller. And this is one of my favorite books. I gave this 5 stars. It tells the story of Circe. It's like her whole life story and exile and stuff. But I've already talked about this to death. So my friend is still borrowing this, and I only have the dust jacket. I would love to reread it if she would finish the book. So I'm just kidding. Take your time. The reason why homegirl can take her time is because I do want to get to the Song of Achilles. This is the UK edition of this book. I think it's really pretty. This is also another retelling. I believe it's going to follow, obviously, Achilles, and I believe Patroclus during the Battle of Troy, I believe. I'm not sure. I've never read it. Everyone is giving this 5 stars. Everyone is loving this book. Everyone's obsessed with this book. It's all over TikTok. It's all over Pinterest. It's everywhere. So I need to read this book. I just feel like I just don't want it to be one of those cases of like overhype. You know what I mean? Like everyone's really loving it. So I'm just going to like nitpick and like, that's kind of dumb. Like, I don't know why I do that. But anyways, but yeah, I do want to read this one. Another retelling similar to these guys is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. And this one follows Ariadne. And she's supposed to be like the niece of Circe. There are moments in Circe where you do meet Ariadne, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. She's supposed to fall in love with the guy that winds up defeating the Minotaur. And this is supposed to be very heartbreaking as well. And she kind of goes through it. I did get this from Book of the Month, and I still have not read it. But I will soon. So there you go. Prompt number 6, Justice Hall, a book about a senseless loss of life. Now this one, I'm going to choose Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Now this book is about 2 sisters who wind up learning about each other because of the death of their father. The dad, he was on a plane ride going to the Dominican Republic, and the plane crashes, he dies. Upon the death, we learned that he sort of had this double life, and he had 2 daughters. So one was living in New York and one was living in the Dominican Republic. They're about the same age, and they didn't know of each other until this plane crash, which is crazy. Crazy. It was definitely inspired by the plane crash back in I believe in the 90s or the early 2000s. I'll put a link to an article in the description box about that plane crash. I remember it vividly. Like, it happened in New York. I believe the plane was taking off from JFK, heading to the Dominican Republic, and it crashed, like, I believe on Long Island or something. I might be saying all of that wrong, but like, so many people died on that plane crash. And I believe the author, Elizabeth Acevedo, use that tragedy sort of as a starting point to creating this beautifully written book about the relationship between these 2 sisters. I would definitely recommend this book. 5 out of 5 stars. It is so good, beautifully written. It's written in verse, but it still feels like you're reading it as a novel, and it's so good. Definitely pick this one up. Prompt number 7, The Game, a book about travel and or learning a language. And for this one, I chose Dominicana by Angie Cruz. And this book is about this woman, or this girl, I should say, Ana Cancion, and she's married off to this man who's about twice her age. They go from the Dominican Republic to New York. And, you know, this is during like the 50s and 60s, I believe the 60s. She comes to New York, and then her husband goes back to Dominican Republic to handle his affairs after the assassination of the dictator Trujillo. She's sort of left to her own devices in a country where she doesn't know the language. She only spoke Spanish. She has to learn English and make a life for herself, being married to a man she barely knows, trying to create a life. This is a very, very good immigrant story. I highly recommend everyone read this if you're into that subject. But yeah, this is a good one. I gotta start moving this along because I'm taking too long. All right, number 8, Locked Rooms, a book where dreams are central to the plot. Now for this one, I'm gonna choose the Sandman series by Neil Gaiman. Now this is a series of graphic novels where we follow the Sandman. What winds up happening is this man, he's an occultist, winds up trying to trap death. But what he winds up doing instead is trapping the Sandman, Death's sibling, instead. He keeps him trapped for about 70 years. He winds up escaping finally, and then taking revenge and trying to acquire all of the relics that were taken from him. So I started listening to the audiobook of this on Audible, and then I downloaded it for free. It was like a period of time where it was free, and then I didn't finish it. And then they cut it off. I was just like, no, I want to finish this. So what I'm going to wind up doing is getting all of the graphic novels soon. I'll probably borrow them from my library and reading it that way, because this was crazy. And the Sandman, he's the Lord of Dreams. That's how it relates to this prompt. He's able to travel through dreams or control people through their dreams and stuff like that, or influence people through their dreams. It's a very dark series, but beautifully written. It's very interesting, very dark. I would definitely, like, just from the audiobook, it was crazy. The audiobook was crazy, like, from what I read. I read like 60% of it. I want to be able to finish that one day, but I gotta renew my Audible subscription, and I don't think I want to do that. But we'll see. All right. The Language of Bees, The God of the Hive. A book about artists and making art. Now, this one's going to be a little bit of a stretch, because the book that I'm going to recommend is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. Not because of Chloe, but her love interest, Red. He's an artist. He's struggling with his own self-image. He's dealing with his own mental health issues. His art is affected by that. But, as he finds love, he finds a renewed interest in his art and all of this stuff. So it's a very good book. I really love this book. It's 5 out of 5, super funny, lots of fun, very steamy, but a really good time anyways. And I really liked Red as a character. Like, the focus on mental and physical health in this book was really great. Like, if you want a book to get to know people dealing with these sort of issues, I would definitely recommend this book. And it's a good time too, so why not, So prompt number 10, Pirate King, a book about the production of a film, play, musical, or opera. And for this one, I chose Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente. I haven't read this. I want to. It sounds like a lot of fun. So it's like this, I believe this competition in space, different species of aliens and people from different galaxies. I'm not sure. Different civilizations in the universe come together to compete in this concert, I think. It sounds like a fun time, and I really want a chance to read this, but I believe this book is supposed to be really big. Oh no, it's not. It's not even that big. It's 352 pages. So I just need to get my hands on this. It sounds like a good time. It's like the Grand Prix of musicals or something like that. But it sounds like a good time. So I definitely want to pick this one up. That way I can read it. The next prompt number 11, is Garment of Shadows, a book that uses the amnesia trope. Now, another book I haven't read yet, but I definitely want to, is definitely on my TBR to read, is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Now, I've only read Artemis by Andy Weir, but I've seen The Martian, the movie. I definitely want to read it, but I don't know if I will, because I already saw the movie, but who knows? We'll see. But Project Hail Mary sounds really cool. It's like this guy in space. He's on a mission. We don't know what the mission is because he has amnesia. He can't remember. All he knows is that he's alone. His crewmates are dead. And he's got to figure out what the mission is. And I think it sounds really cool. I definitely want to get my hands on this book, but I just have a lot on my plate. So I haven't picked it up because it looks like a big tome. So soon enough I will, but not yet. The last prompt of this tag is Dreaming Spies, a book that features acrobats or acrobatics. Now I got 3 books here that I'm going to talk about. 2 are Send on the Sands and Arm of the Sphinx by Josiah Bancroft, mainly because of one character, Valletta. She's like a trapeze artist, acrobatic. I won't get too much into it because then it'll kind of spoil things, but her character would fit this prompt. But this next one I think is like a guess because I haven't read this yet. I've owned this for a while and I still haven't read this. And it's The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now this book I picked up at Comic-Con like 2019. And what's pretty cool is I wasn't even looking for this kind of book, but what's cool is that like I saw the book there and I bought it and then I took it home and then I was like, oh, it's signed. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I still haven't read this yet. I know this is a favorite among many on BookTube, and I just keep putting other books in front of it. It features a circus that comes at night. There's dueling magicians, but I'm assuming because we're at a circus, there's gonna be acrobats throughout the book. This is a guess. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm just gonna say it is. Silver Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. But yeah, that's it. That's the tag. This is the video. I'm going to tag 2 people to do this. I am going to tag Kate from the literary Apothecary to do this tag. And I'm also going to tag Amanda at the Reading and Writing Life. I feel like both of those channels, they read a wide variety of books, just like I do. And I feel like that will be helpful in doing this tag. They both have been so welcoming to me in the bookish community. I met them both when I was doing the Olympics readathon. I was participating in that back in June, and I was on their team, Team Aphrodite, and they're just both lovely people, great booktube channels, tons of great recommendations on their channels, and I definitely recommend you guys check them out. I will leave the questions to this tag in the description box of this video for you guys to check out. Again, please check out Redella Hardwick on Instagram. That's Kat's Instagram. If you want to do this tag, feel free to do so. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.